day, I got in.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
There are those who will never accept your way of thinking. They will interpret any attempt to compromise or reason as a sign of weakness and as permission to attack, in much the same way a shark interprets blood in the water. Never give an inch, never blink in the face of opposition. Turn their intransigence against them. Use their refusal to depart from reduction as permission to explore the most extreme possibilities. Develop the instinct of a wild beast who is tender with his kin and totally and absolutely merciless with his enemies. Marry that instinct to the intellect of a philosopher.
We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no Great War, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives.
Happy heresies and welcome to the desert of the real. A world without sin and a dream of you finally made manifest. That quote was from Christopher Knowles, fellow red pill junkie, counterculture buckaroo banzai, rebel without a meme, and the great news behind the great blog, The Secret Sun. By Harris PMS, what a way to begin Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio, formerly known as Coffee, Cigarettes, and Gnosis, and formerly broadcast at freethoughtmedia.com, where godless atheists spoke a lot about God for some reason. These cyber yugas, it is transmitted from the virtual Alexandria, that state of mind where East meets West, through the GodAboveGod.com.
Everyone gets everything he wants. I wanted a mission, and for my sins they gave me one. I was going to the worst place in the world, and I didn't even know it yet.
If I had a corporal form, I would embrace each one of you with so much kindness and love. Oh, my brothers in arms and sisters in mercy. Oh, you timid and transcendental. You spiritual rejects and revolutionaries of the mind. You forgotten by a mechanical society built by Jehovah and the other solar gods. Large in penis, but small in balls, when the hero's rubber meets the roadless sodomized by good intentions.
Intimacy is like putting your wiener on the table and having someone say, "That looks like a penis, only smaller."
However and forever, you have not forgotten you are the divine in the making, also known as apotheosis in Greek. Thus you have manifested at Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio to allow yourself to be more than you've allowed yourself to ever be. To have more of those near-life experiences, and finally find your own personal Jesus, personal mystery religion that works for you and only you. To write your own gospel and live your own myth, as ancient and modern Gnostic-minded were and are wont to do. Amun-Ra.
Don't you see? It's not about you. It's about them.
But I can't go back.
Don't know that you got a choice, son. No man can walk out on his own story.
After all, we are the lords of deconstruction, those modern-day Tom Sawyers with our mean stride, our mind not for rent to any god or government. We are those veterans of 1,000 psychic wars, all of us on a ship of light of the Manichaeans, the crescent moon across the dark matter skies of mere being, past the horizons of material pornography, all the way to the farthest shores of imagination and realized potentiality.
Open your eyes.
We don't take prisoners but liberate them. We are not the final authority on anything, but explore the endless possibilities of everything. We elevate and then negate because the fragmented, demented, collective mind of humanity is our torturous playground as it is our victorious battleground. The hordes of the religion and political and corporate hells attempt to possess our soul and very free will like propaganda evil dead, patronizing armies of darkness, Ash.
Hail to the king, baby.
What sort of supreme being created such riffraff? Is it not the workings of a complete incompetent?
But the sweet, steely kiss of the Valkyries that are Sophia and Elilith and Mary Magdalene inculcate us with the vision, the gnosis, to pierce black iron prisons and black hole suns, and the false layers of eagles spackled over our divine spark by inept Freemason angels. I've quoted several times the Gospel of Thomas number 18, where Jesus tells his disciples they must voyage to the beginning in order to know the end. Take the Ouroboros by the tail and slap his head with it, if you will, to confront past and even upcoming traumas as we remember the future and sync with our higher self-ordainment.
I mean, the world can kick your ass. I only have a vague recollection when it wasn't kicking mine.
Or as the great alchemist once said, go to the beginning to get to the end. Find out what is real to know the pretend. And that was Pinocchio, my beloved true seekers. Like all of us in a quest to become alive instead of dead wood with morning wood for the latest Pinterest virtual herd stampede, like most of sleeping humanity. The pretend is fine, like raiding into the Matrix is fine, as sexy metrosexual mercenaries of the Pleroma, also known as a 0-point field.
I thought it wasn't real.
Your mind makes it real.
If you're killed in the Matrix, you die here?
The body cannot live without the mind.
Pinocchio wanted to be a boy, though, and St. Paul said we must leave childish things behind and speak like men. But Philip K. Dick added to that when he said, let the boy mature, but do not let the man hold back the boy. The philosopher Leibniz said that freedom is to embrace the law of your own being. Yet Heraclitus said there is no being, only becoming. And Sartre, thousands of tearful years later, countered by announcing there is no human nature, only human condition. And in between and among all these exemplars, here we are, stuck in the middle with you and your hosts of hosts, Abraxas, the world-destroying god of Hermann Hesse, and the god in the gutter of Philip K. Dick. Always at your humble service, in his mortal incarnation of Miguel Connor, shooting his stupid hole off on this Saturday, May 19th, the year of our demiurge, 2012. And the Arkans don't like that. Rock the Casbah and rock me Amadeus?
Go on. Mock me. Laugh. That was not Mozart laughing, Father. That was God. That was God laughing at me through that obscene giggle.
They probably don't like it either that I'm quoting all these notable cats, when it was Voltaire who said, in a witty saying, that a witty saying proves nothing. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, did pronounce that you should not waste time talking about great souls, but instead should become one yourself. I'm sure he said that when he was in a stoic mode instead of a persecuting Christian mode. But such is the schizophrenic mosh pit that is the cosmos, my beloved truth seekers, where fate makes all of us beasts among beasts, sooner or later. That's why, as said before, we must not forget to marry our beast nature to the mind of a philosopher.
The quest is to be liberated from the negative, which is really our own will to nothingness. And once having said yes to the instant, the affirmation is contagious. it bursts into a chain of affirmations that knows no limit. To say yes to one instant is to say yes to all of existence.
Alright, and by the cherry of Artemis, no more quoting anyone. But you will certainly want to quote the Sophian logos of this episode's astral guests. And you just heard one of my amazing segues to save you from my usual shipwreck of a monologue. And that is the wonderful Tim Freke arriving to the virtual Alexandria on the chariot of Apollo to discuss his new book, The Mystery Experience, a revolutionary approach to spiritual awakening. Tim has dignified Aeon, Byte, Gnostic radio several times. You shouldn't waste another goblin fart. And, as you also become a great soul, download all of his interviews at our archive of past shows. Before, during, and after this Gaia-shattering interview, where Tim basically brings his gnosis of 40 years to the place where the hero's rubber meets the roadless sodomized by good intentions.
Toughened your nipples, didn't it?
And definitely forget not his other best-selling books like How Long Is Now, Lucid Living, and the seminal The Jesus Mysteries trilogy, co-written with Peter Gandhi.
You know much that is hidden, though, Tim. Quite.
For more information on Tim and his new orthodoxy desecration, please visit themysteryexperience.com. Like I said, for decades, Tim Freke has brought forth the treasures of the Gnostics and mystery schools to the forefront of both scholarship and the occult-minded. He has distilled the wisdom of the ancients into a modern meaning, in order to give life a richer meaning to those seeking it.
Human beings were not meant to sit in little cubicles staring at computer screens all day, filling out useless forms and listening to 8 different bosses drone on about mission statements.
He reveals many of his groundbreaking insights from his latest tome and on this interview, drawing from the depths of various heterodox traditions across history to create a compelling kaleidoscope that includes quantum physics, the Tao, Advaita, Buddhism, Joseph Campbell, and Carl Jung. What is synthesized is an approachable and contemporary way for each one of us to access a higher state of consciousness and enter into, you got it, the mystery of existence. We also discuss the problem of outdated, superstitious movements, the important marriage of science and mysticism to induce harmonious gnosis, manageable spiritual exercises that don't require strain or membership of any kind, and many other topics relevant to anyone involved in the modern esoterica, and even beyond.
What's the journey I have to make, you have to make, each of us has to make? You talk about something called a soul's high adventure.
Follow your bliss. I mean, find where it is and don't be afraid to follow it.
A book worth inhaling, my beloved truth seekers, if anything for the imagination that Tim uses by creating delightful dialogues of bygone luminaries, as he did in his fiction work, The Gospel of the Second Coming. And like I keep saying, imagination, that shifting of images in your mind that leads you through the doors of perception and into the truth, as the Gospel of Philip states, is sometimes just enough to get you through the night of Lenin, the dark night of the soul of St. John of the Cross, the dark night of Miller. You must become, in a world that we must paradoxically save while it tries to kill us in all levels.
This is the time to show them everything. Make sure they remember you.
Summoning the spirit of the quote of Christopher Knowles at the beginning of the show that I've already alluded to, we must marry the instinct of a wild beast to the intellect of a philosopher.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Smells like victory.
And with another genius segue, actually more of my swamp gas, I'll mention like passing gas that your support of Aeon Byte is another way to take the fight directly to all archonic powers, inner and outer. Donations or any type of assistance are always a blessing, even if it's the many skills I don't have. Web design, marketing, guest scouting, throwing together some YouTube videos because you're good at it, or just writing something that makes sense.
Hell, I like you. You can come over to my house and fuck my sister.
Your support is essential for Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio. Thank you for those who have supported this imp from the Game of Thrones venture via benefactions, buying soul-liberating and critically acclaimed products like the novels Stargazer and Heretic, or the important Voices of Gnosticism, where you can read the transcribed interviews of some of the greatest scholars in history on the topic of Gnosticism and beyond. Or those of you who have downloaded past episodes of the Gospel of Thomas album. But more help is necessary if this venture is to continue at this or any level. If everyone simply donates a shekel or two, or buys a show every week, I can break even and maybe begin production of the Aeon Byte movie, tentatively called the Aeon Byte movie, with Matthew Modine playing Yours Falsely, Ron Perlman and his lovely Jaws playing Abraxas, Christina Ricci and her heavenly forehead playing Sophia, and every judge on every reality talent television show playing the Archons that will be tossed into the lake of fire from the Apocalypse of John. Especially Christina Aguilera and her unhygienic demonic form.
Arrogance may not be a uniquely American trait, but I must say you do it better than anyone.
Again, your support is essential. Damning your soul has never been this cheap. And please spread the heretical word to anyone seeking a place on that paradise on a dashboard light or a highway to hell. Your mileage may vary. We just want to keep the lights on here at Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio and take it any way you want. And with that, let us to the interview with Tim Freke, where he discusses his new book, The Mystery Experience. How about another quote? Just one more, please?
I don't want any baloney, magic tricks, or psychological mumbo-jumbo.
Okay. It's from the Nag Hammadi Library's Thomas the Contender, with Jesus telling Tommy Boy, "Now, since it has been said that you are my twin and true companion, examine yourself and learn who you are, in what way you exist, and how you will come to be. Since you will be called my brother, it is not fitting that you be ignorant of yourself. And I know that you have understood, because you had already understood that I am the knowledge of the truth. So while you accompany me, although you are uncomprehending, you have in fact already come to know, and you will be called the one who knows himself. For he who has not known himself has known nothing. But he who has known himself has at the same time already achieved knowledge about the depth of the all. So then you, my brother Thomas, have beheld what is obscure to men, that is, what they ignorantly stumble against. Yes, I got no strings to hold me down, you old perv, Gepetto."
It's been a brilliant journey of self-awakening. Now you've simply got to ask yourself this. What is happiness to you?
I'll see you in another life, when we are both cats.
Every passing minute is another chance to turn it all around.
I have ceased to exist.
This is the Aeon Byte interview. Definitely have the great pleasure of having back Tim Freke to discuss his new book, The Mystery Experience, a revolutionary approach to spiritual awakening. How are you doing today, Tim? And thank you again for coming back.
I'm really delighted to be back. I'm doing fine.
So why don't we begin with maybe the title and really the crux of a lot of your work. So starting way back with the Jesus mysteries. We hear a lot about the word mystery. There is a mystery of the Eucharist, the mystery of magical practices, the mystery of life. But most people really don't know what a mystery is in the spiritual sense. What exactly is a mystery, Tim?
Well, the really deep sense, the deep mystery I'm interested in, Miguel, is the mystery that confronts me every morning when I wake up. It's like you can get in, as you said, to all these different mysteries, the mystery of, the corn circles around here or the this, and they're all really interesting. But the key mystery for me is what's this now? What is this? And whilst it feels to me like on the surface of life, I have over the decades become a relatively well-informed, well-educated person who's got a lot of knowledge and ideas, and I meet a lot of people like that. And as a culture, we understand more and more all the time on the surface. And yet, at exactly the same time, the foundation underneath, we have no idea what life is. It's a breathtaking, this moment is the most breathtaking minute you can imagine, that we exist, that these colors and shapes and sounds are happening. And what intrigues me is what happens to consciousness when you pay that attention, when you stop just looking at the place of the story where you know everything, and you enter that profound not knowing. And the irony, I think, is that when you enter deeply into that not knowing, that's where the deep knowing, or the gnosis, is found. That's where you find yourself knowing something before words. So it connects back with my other work, the Jesus Mysteries, which was about Christianity and the ancient mysteries, because I think that's what they were doing too. The mysteries were about taking you into a place of appreciating the profound mystery of life and experiencing the gnosis that comes through doing that.
So this is basically more, the word occult means the hidden.
Yeah.
And the job of the occultist, or maybe the mystery religion hierophant, is to bring what is hidden more or less to what is visible. And
Yes.
that's what you've been trying to do, right? Bringing the sublime into the forefront. Or...
into the ridiculous. Yes.
Yes, sometimes, yeah, which is not bad at all.
I mean, it seems to me, one of the key ideas in the book is this new way of thinking, which I've been articulating, which is based on an understanding of paradox or polarity. I call it paralogical thinking. And paralogical thinking is, the shorthand way of understanding it is it's both and thinking. It's understanding that when you come to the depths of life, you can't think in logical either or ways because opposites are both true. And if anything, is the very center of all the great esoteric traditions, right from the Taoist tradition through to the Western ones. It's that. The opposites coincide. And if you can start getting that, then you can say, well, here we are right now, and we both know and don't know what life is at the same time. When we're lost in just one of those, the place where the story, we don't notice the hidden, the occult, if you will. Now, an awful lot of occult ideas are about bringing kind of occult knowledge to bear, and that's very interesting. What I'm interested in is something a bit deeper than that. What I'm interested in is the direct gnosis, the knowing that underlies all of that. And I think that comes when you go so deep into the mystery that you start to experience this transformation of consciousness. If you go deep, you become deep awake. You become awake to the depths of life. And then you see what's hidden. And I mean, one of the themes in the book is the relationship between science and spirituality. And that's because I think science is very good at revealing that. It is itself an occult science. One of the things I love is that when I look at this, it's all so real and, it's so there. And to deny that would be craziness. You're just nuts. But I also know that we found, convincingly, that it's not there. That it's 99.939's nothing. And what is there is just quantum possibilities, whatever the hell they are. So right now, I can be conscious, oh, look, this is and isn't there. And when I become aware, when I become aware of both of those, my appreciation of what this moment is, it comes to life. It starts to sparkle. I see the wonder of it. I start seeing that it's not what it seems. And then my whole appreciation of living is much deeper.
Yeah, and although we all would love to take, or like to think that we've created something new and we want to take it, but this is nothing new. I mean, the Buddha said, all universe is basically empty. The Gnostics called the universe the Kenoma. It was sort of a playground of energies and ideas that kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, it is. What I'm doing is, why I call it a revolutionary new approach to spirituality is because what I've done is to try and create a new language which can enable people to really bring those ancient traditional ideas to life and get them in their own experience. Because that's the key for me, is it's like you need to get the idea in your actual experience. So, yeah, the Kenoma, the Pleroma, the Samsara, the Nirvana, these are all the same idea, really. If you look at the moment, then you can start actually seeing, what does that mean actually now? It means that there's this ground of being, of infinite possibility arising as this limited appearance. And when I'm lost in the limited appearance, it becomes confining, like a prison. That's a lot of Gnostic thought is obviously about that. But if I'm aware of this as well, but this is the key for me, not instead, not either or, but both at the same time, actually this becomes a playground. Suddenly, from a prison, this becomes a playground. And the body comes alive, and to really look, to sense, to feel, to breathe, to see color, to meet another human being, becomes an extraordinary miracle. And then rather than being confined by it, it becomes a vehicle for the expression of my own deeper nature, or the deeper nature, really.
You bring a lot of great insights. We could probably talk for hours.
I'm sure you and I could talk for days,
sometimes
actually.
You know me? Yeah, I could talk for days. Yeah, or I could listen for days. I'm wise enough to start listening for a change. But one thing that really struck me out, and I kept using it all throughout your book. In fact, I kept using it beyond your book, of the many insights and practical advice you have. You know, as you say, suggestions. You're not telling anybody this is it, and you got to follow it. But you said if something works on my daughter, if there's something I would tell my daughter, then this is something that I can use in my spiritual life. If there's something that I wouldn't tell my children, then I simply discard it. Isn't that correct?
It's this is my breakthrough technique for seeing whether a spiritual teaching is bullshit. And having been around spirituality, having written all of these books on all of these different traditions, and seen, been involved with a lot of living teachers and for decades. Actually, between you and I and everyone who's listening, I don't have a very high opinion of spirituality anymore. It seems to me that so much of it is like not working, or it's stuck in some. And what it's stuck in usually is this either or approach, which goes, it's either this. Now, the classic one would be, it's all one. This is a deep teaching, found perennial teaching. Therefore, this separateness is some sort of pernicious illusion. No, I can't get, and once I see that it's both, I can't go with that. So when I think about it, would I tell that to my kids? Here's my little girl, she's just coming into life. She's on this amazing adventure. Would I take her aside and go, yes, darling, but it's just really a meaningless illusion? It's like, I'm not going to do that, so that can't be right. Or
Daddy's been drinking.
Yeah,
again,
really.
Mom.
Or don't have an ego. This is you hear this everywhere. You shouldn't have a separate self or an ego. Kill it or transcend it or get rid of it or just something it. I'm not going to be with my little girl. Don't have it. I want her to have an ego. I want her to develop a sense of who she is as a separate individual, to know her boundaries, to grow into someone, a strong woman who's herself. That's a journey that I've been on, you've been on, we've all been on. And often the most stupid things are said passed as wisdom, so that you kind of think, oh, hang on, was that all a big mistake? Was the universe set up in such a way that we're in this meaningless illusion in which we spend our whole lives developing an individual self which is just in the way of us actually being realized? And it doesn't feel right to me, because I think it's both and. So now what I'm presenting in the book is, look, no, there's no mistake. This is actually an exquisite journey. We develop the separate self because through that we become conscious. And it's then the foundation from which we can come to the deep awake, or the gnosis. That's our vehicle, both for self-realization, and then because it's a paralogical thing, the other part, which is self-expression. That it's not just about getting away to this other place. It's also about coming back and bringing that depth into this grand symphony of life. That's what love is. Love is bringing it back and sharing it. Now that I would tell my daughter. And there's just so many of them. My other one, I'll do one more because I just love it. Well, there's a few I just love. I mean, another one.
Yeah, I think the one that struck me is it's very trendy in modern esoterica to denigrate thinking, the brain is what's getting in the way between us and God or us and transcending and all that. But obviously, the last thing we tell our children is don't think, we don't go up to them and say,
you're going to be there with your daughter
don't
going,
hi,
Dad, I'm off to school. Oh, I'm really worried about this school thing because they're going to get you to think. And that's going to get in the way of your spiritual realization. So look, promise me that you won't think when you're... It's like, no, that can't be right. You've only got to think. Only someone who doesn't think enough would possibly say that. That's crazy. 13.5 billion years of evolution to develop so that the universe can think about itself. And here we are, the universe, and we can imagine. And everything we create comes from imagination. And imagination, thinking is just imagining, talking to yourself, isn't it? You're just talking in your imagination. And that is the most, all of these things, Miguel, every single one of the things we talked about and others which we could go into, are actually, without realizing it, ways of denigrating our humanity. This is something bad. I can't go with that. I think this is ambiguous, because everything is. I think, there's a difficult side of being human and a beautiful side of being human. But in itself, it's fantastic and needs to be really appreciated so that we can embrace this kind of vulnerable, tender, physical thing that we're going through this journey in. Not denigrate it, not our thinking bad. No, that's what makes us human. Attachment, another one. Don't be attached. It's like, well, hang on.
Don't be attached to your teddy
it's my little girl. She comes up to me and she goes, I love you, Daddy. And I go, well, don't be attached. I mean, it's like, no. I don't. So what I'm suggesting is this. With all of these things, the solution is both and. The reason we get attracted to what are really silly ideas is because they have some truth in them, deep truth. Because there is a place deep within where we're not attached already. We're completely free, utterly free. There is a place where we're just completely still. There's a silence within which the thoughts are arising. And that's absolutely real. And we need both, but we don't have to get rid of our humanity, our individuality, to experience the great peace, the great oneness, the great liberation. We experience it together. And when we see that, the reason that when I take people on my retreats that I can take people so quickly to this deep awake state where they really get it is because I set them up at the beginning with, look, this isn't going anywhere. You don't have to get rid of anything. You see something else as well. And then it's much easier for it to go, oh, got it. Oh, I got it. Oh, and the relief, the love, the ecstasy of discovering that becomes very, very obvious. And you haven't had to do, you haven't changed. You're still you. I'm still very Tim. I haven't become some of Uber Tim who's disappeared. But I'm okay with that. It's like, it's okay, because this is expressing itself in this quirky way through Tim, making that experiencing itself in a different way through Miguel.
At the same time, you do talk about oneness, but you have some critiques about non-dual philosophies.
These are a lot of ones which we've been exploring. Later in the book.
Yeah, I mean, you've already gotten to the plenty of years with the liberalists and the orthodox and all that, but now you're kind of saying to the non-dualists, we are the world. You've got
I've invented this. I do these little conversations sometimes just for fun because I think it's important to make this fun. So I've got this kind of imaginary philosophical sparring partner I called Swami Blandananda. And Swami Blandananda is the guy who parrots back to me all the stuff which I myself have explored earlier in my life, which sounds like wisdom at first it sounds like wisdom because it opens up this. So there's a period where you go, wow, that's incredible. But ultimately it's life denying. See, all this stuff about there is no separateness, that's all an illusion. Your freedom of choice is an illusion. Everything that makes you human, your thinking's an illusion. Your attachments are undesirable. Well, you should have no desire. It's like to be human is to think, to feel passion, to make choices. And all of that feels to me absolutely not only wonderful and valuable, but real. And the opposite is real too, because the opposites on the deepest level coexist. So there's another place where you can stand, where there's all one. And it's not that there's no it's not that there's no Tim who has no freedom, or there's no Tim. There is no Tim on the depths. It's like you go to the bottom of the ocean, there's no waves. There's still waves on the surface, but you go to the bottom of the ocean and it's all one. Well, if you go to the depths of life, it's all one. There's no waves. It's very still. It's way beyond your humanity. And then you come back to the top and everything's going up and down and it's separate and flowing, and there's the human adventure, and they both sit together. And what I want to see happen is spirituality shape up so that it can really communicate to a much bigger audience. Because I feel that what's happening at the moment is that it's sidelined, and it's sidelined because a lot of very intelligent, caring, thinking people look at it and go, that is nuts. And the reason they say that is because so much of it is nuts. And yet within it is something hugely important and massively profound. And we just need to bring it out and say it in a new way.
Yeah, I love this quote. You have, again, used so many wonderful quotes, and from the Gospel of Thomas to Walt Whitman. I mean, you really bring out the whole arsenal, but again, you don't hit people over the head with it. Very subtle. I love this quote used by Carl Jung. Every human being is an attempt at a human being, a throw from the depths. That right there, you can meditate on.
He is so cool. I love Uncle Carl. He just, he's like, a wise old uncle. I love him.
Maybe one day you could have a conversation with him.
And one of the things I like about him, it's like what I love about Whitman, and I love about so many of these people, is that they have this incredible depth, and you also get the feeling that as a human being, they were flawed, and they weren't hiding it. And that's what I love, is like somebody who can go, I've discovered this, and I've seen myself as I am, which is this mixture of things. Because everything is mixed. Everything is a paradox, and I am too. And I get that from Carl Jung immensely, and I love it. What a great thing. He could see himself and all of us as throws from the depth, an attempt at a human being. And that's what I feel we all are. I agree with that completely, that we're on this journey, and life has thrown us up and is reaching towards its greatest potential in a particularly unique way through each and every one of us. And we never reach it. But we have that experience of like a wave, just rising up towards it. And then again, and that happens over a lifetime, and it happens every day, actually, doesn't it? We rise up from the unconscious oneness of deep sleep, the ground of being. We wake up, we come into this world, we're energized, and then the energy fades, and we go. And then we recharge in the depths of the unconscious oneness, we come rushing up again, and we experience it again, and we go. And then we do that over a lifetime as well.
Kind of reminds me of a story of Aldous Huxley trying peyote, and he is up there in the stratosphere and just having a wonderful time. But in the back of the head, he's thinking, my dishes are dirty. I have to clean those dishes. I have to come back. And he has no problem coming back so he can wash his dishes. But that kind of shows you that you can't just leave forever. You've got to come back.
Huxley's fantastic. I love Huxley. He was a big influence on me, and he really provided some key moments in my journey when I was a teenager, especially. And there's another great theme. One of the things which I had my conversation with Swami Blandananda about in that particular chapter is this particularly pernicious idea. You see, what it seems to me we've done is especially, in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, an awful lot of people who were exploring spirituality in the West looked at our own Western tradition, couldn't find what they were looking for, and imported wholesale a whole load of Indian religion. And did it pretty uncritically. Having been very critical of the Western stuff, rightfully, actually just imported all of this. And really, in a way, what I feel I'm trying to do now is go, look, we need to be just as critical of this. This isn't the perennial truth. This is just one culture or individual's ideas or attempts to express it. And one of the key ideas, which is ubiquitous now in the West, is the idea of enlightenment. That there is a place we could reach in which we would just be, or, we'd be We would be perfect without evolving. We'd arrived without traveling. It'd all be good without any bad. We transcend without ever being involved. I don't know, just...
It's like a born-again Christian. I'm born again, and that's
just
it.
you've arrived. With the Enlightenment idea, I think, is even worse, actually. Because at least with a born-again Christian, God bless them, they still think they're on a journey. But with the Enlightened thing, it's like somebody somewhere has got to the place, and it's usually accompanied with an idea, again, in totally rejecting of our humanity, which goes, and you never have to come back here. Because, you've done, well done. You've got off the wheel, you're out. Phew, And what intrigues me is that this idea of enlightenment is particularly Indian. You don't find it in China, amongst the Taoists. You don't find it in South America, amongst different shamanic traditions. You don't find it in the West. Our heroes in the West, the saints and sages of the West, often are people who struggle. They're more like artists. They struggle with life, with the darkness and the suffering, and they're not like, ooh, they're like, ooh, they engage with their hearts, get broken by life. They work to come through, they struggle. They're human. And I like that. And for me, it feels like, no, look, what we need is a different ideal that we're aspiring to, not this enlightenment ideal, because it just leaves us in a permanent state of failure to arrive at something which actually I think is impossible to arrive at. Because all the enlightened people I've met, and I've met a few, they all turned out to be like you and me.
God bless them, then.
They all turned out to be human, all too human. And if they just stuck with that in the first place, it would have been a lot better.
And, another thing which our age has taught us, and again, it's gone maybe too far, is in the old days, we were all miserable sinners, or we're all Heilig material, or we're all just an illusion that doesn't exist. But then we've taken it to the extreme where we're all just great individuals full of potential and just celebrate your best parts and all that. But what happens is we begin to suppress our negative ones. And as you write, and many ancient traditions like Sufism would agree, this is very damaging. Going back to Uncle Carl Jung and his concept of the shadow, isn't that a way to kind of understand the wholeness of us?
It's absolutely key, I think. When you can see that there are parts of you which are wounded, really, that we carry soul wounds, psychological, psychic wounds, like we do physical wounds. And we live in a time where a lot, it's the state of spirituality. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's people doing immensely good things. But, often it's either stuff which is very old and really needs to keep evolving and hasn't, and people really don't understand what they mean anymore. Or there's this new thing, which you said, which is also completely one-sided. It's come particularly from America and reflects American culture. It also struck me the other day, I thought, isn't it funny? We have the longest economic boom in economic history. And from that comes this incredible idea that you can have everything you want and you can just believe it and it will arrive and you're just full of potential and just dream your dream. And it's like, well, yeah, because we just lived through a huge boom.
The law of attraction and the secret and all that.
And now it's turning into its opposite, because everything does turn into its opposite. And suddenly it feels like, hang on a second, that's missing something. There's something in it. I mean, I'm, being positive, lovely. But more than lovely, really good thing. But, like you said, look, hang on, there's a deeper thing here too. And if we can't look inside and recognize the shadow, as Carl Jung calls it, or the unloved self, as I call it sometimes, the wounded self, and if we can't care for that, and we can't realize that, the truth is, it's not all going to heal, actually. We've got this idea in New Age thought, particularly, that somehow there's a magic wand out there which will take everything away. But, I've got a scar on my body here, which I picked up when I was 6 years old. It's still there. And there are scars which you pick up when you're a kid in your psyche, in your soul. And they'll be there till your dying day. They are become what you are. What we need to do is learn to live with them tenderly. And if we can live with them tenderly and look after ourselves with our scars and with our wounds, then we can do it with each other. Not aspire to some impossible perfection. There's actually something more deeper than that, which is to be able to accept and hold the imperfection within this deep perfection. So they sit together. It's the Pleroma and the Kanoma, it's the Nirvana, Samsara, Bing and Bong, Ping and Pong. Yin and Yang.
Do you find at your retreats that that is the hardest part? That sometimes is the hardest part is people to recognize their own flaws or admit it, or to stop beating themselves up. Those might be the two hardest things you have to break through.
The biggest thing I see with people that come on my retreats, and the biggest thing I want them to arrive at, is that everyone, feels bad about themselves. And what I do with people is when I take them to this deep awake state and they become literally just permeated with deep love, so you can feel it in every cell in your body. You can't miss it. What I love the most is that they suddenly see this incredible beauty deep within other people. And and at a certain point, and they're just getting lost in that, and it's amazing, at a certain point they realize, oh my God, that other person is seeing that same deep beauty in me. That's in me. And suddenly it's like, oh, right, so I am this little shit, but I'm not just this little shit. I'm also this incredibly beautiful thing. And then it's all right. And we hide that from each other and ourselves because we're so used to rejection because of it. But if we can just get to the point where we're as kind, it's like if you met someone who had a broken leg and they were having trouble, or you hit them by mistake and they went, oh, geez, and you go, oh, I'm terribly sorry. Did I hit your broken leg? But if you've got someone who's got a broken soul and you say something or you do something and you hit them and they react against you, people tend to go, well, what's wrong with him? And it's like, no, he's just wounded. Just be careful with the wound. There was a time, as you know, in our culture, in the Middle Ages and before, where if someone was physically deformed or had a physical problem, they were seen as bad. It still is like that in certain cultures, India and things like this. They're cursed by God. We don't do that anymore. So if we can get to the point now where we don't do that with each other's soul wounds as well, then I think compassion will start to come in, and then we can be real with each other, and we can accept that we've got this light and dark within us.
Another very good analogy you put, and of course it resonates with me, and obviously with you, we're both writers. Well, everybody's a writer these days, whether you write poetry, nonfiction. There is the paralogical thinking came to me, because as you say, there is the inspiration part of the book where we just let this beauty and harmony flow in the book. And then there's that really painstaking editing, intellectual material part of that book that we have to confront too. But with those two sides, that's how we create this wonderful piece of art.
That's it. Yeah, exactly that. And then you can see, that's why this paralogical thinking, which, I think at first when I say it to people, they think, well, that sounds a bit abstract. But when you get it, like you have just said, you'd suddenly like, oh, this is really, really practical and helpful. Because everything has that quality. And when you create, you need to do both. And when you're living your life, there's create and there's criticize. There's inspiration, there's perspiration, as they say. I mean, I remember there was a great Advaitic teacher that I met who taught me a lot. He's dead now, and a wonderful man. And I remember him giving me, or actually I think selling me, a book when I first met him, which was a brilliant book, actually. And he said to me very, very, he said to me, and it had a particular tone, he said there was no corrections with this, it just flowed completely out, just perfectly, because he was into this, there's no choice, it all just happens, and this was clearly an example of it. And I went home and read it, and it was a brilliant book, but God, it needed a good edit.
Yeah, I mean, you can't.
I could have taken that book and turned it into a book of genius by just spending a month editing. And that's the two. You need the two.
Bring a wonderful list, a lexicon, basically, of your 40 years of studying and living several traditions and now synthesizing them. And many of the listeners probably already know some of them from our past interviews in your work, like Deep Awake, Lucid Living. You've brought some of them. But the culmination seems to be what you call the wow experience. What is that?
Well, the thing I wanted to both start with and end with is that when you come into this Deep Awake, it's not... it's wow. I mean, the reason I ended up with the word was because I was trying to think, how can I describe this? How can I describe the mystery experience in an emotive way to capture how it feels? And I started looking. I get all these emails from people that have come to my retreats, and I suddenly realized that the vast majority of them had the word wow, either in the title of the email or in the body of the email, usually in capitals with a lot of exclamation marks afterwards. Because, wow is a word we use to go, I can't say what it's like, but it's wow. And that's how it feels to me. When we enter, we can't live there. Don't get me wrong, we can't live in wow. You couldn't deal with washing your dishes, like Aldous Huxley said. You need to keep it flowing and moving. But every now and again, on a regular basis, we need to remember how wow it is to be alive. Because otherwise we'll wait till we're dying, and then we'll suddenly notice. Because when you're dying, I think you do. You suddenly look at it, and just to look, just to feel, just to be with somebody, someone you love, or anyone, is wow. Because you realize how precious it is. Well, it's wow now. And my aspiration is that I can and we can appreciate how wow it already is now.
I think like you and Peter wrote in the Gospel of the Second Coming, life is foreplay, death is coming.
One of my favorite lines. I'm so pleased.
How could I forget? It was amazing. And kind of speaking of that, and the Gospel of the Second Coming, you have Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and Peter have these wonderful debates on the meaning of reality, even though they don't really exist, and so forth. In this book, again, you bring some wonderful dialogues, but one of the best parts for me was your dialogues with all these great scientific luminaries with your friend Dick, and how frustrated the poor fellow came about. Why did you decide to do this? And was it exciting to you studying all these great scientists and saying, wow, they really, I just said it, wow, they really understood the wonder and mystery of life, even though they were so steeped in science.
Yes, it was a real thrill because, I had spent my life exploring spirituality, and since I was young, science always seemed materialistic and to just miss the point. Just like, how is this going to help me understand life? It might tell me how things work, but it's not going to tell me why or what to do about it or anything. So I kind of rejected science when I was young. And then the last period of my life, I really got into it. And what I found interesting was that these really great scientists were not materialists at all. They were Gnostics. These were people who really saw to the depths of life and were in love with it, just like I was, except they'd come to it for a different route. So the idea really of how can I convey this to people and how can I create a new vision of spirituality which is completely harmonious with deep science, not materialistic science, because that's redundant. That's finished. That way of seeing the world has been completely, it doesn't work scientifically. It's no longer any good. Just like the fluffy spirituality or the world-rejecting spirituality. That doesn't work. Let's dump those two. They're no good. But here's this deep spirituality and this deep science, and they do this in a really interesting way. So I thought what would be fun to do would be actually to have some imaginary conversations in which me and another of my sparring partners, Clever Dick, who is the rationalist part of me, the part of me that keeps me on the straight and narrow, that comes, hang on a minute, wait, go to flights of, it's that part of me that I dialogue with, and let him have these conversations with Niels Bohr, Schrödinger, Albert Einstein, these Nobel Prize-winning scientists, and let them say things they actually said, quotations they actually said, but instead of a dry thing, you can have it like a fun conversation in which you can actually have that feeling of here's a human being. These people were men who said these words because this is what they saw, rather than that kind of more scholarly thing where you don't see that anymore. You don't get the human being.
Yeah, it's an amazing conversation. I felt sorry for poor Dick. I think Blandanana actually gave you more run for your money in the debate. But some of the quotes are just amazing. I love when Einstein said, if you start an idea and it's not absurd, you might as well throw it out. I was like, wow, that's great. Yeah, it has to be something so out there for it to be worth you going the journey to have that idea.
Yes, I love it as well because they're funny. I think it was Niels Bohr who replies in my book to Dick, but in life to another scientist, by saying, said, your idea is absurd, but not absurd enough to be true.
That's a great one. Even though it's not in your book, it also reminds me, and this actually happened between Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein. You know, Einstein was kind of fighting the whole idea of quantum physics and, you know, like Schrodinger, this whole paradigm at first. And Niels Bohr turns to him and goes, you know, "You're not thinking, Albert. You're merely being logical." That was, again, that's paralogical thinking that Niels Bohr was using on Einstein.
Yes, absolutely. And Niels Bohr, as you'll know from the book, and let me share it with you, with the others who are joining our conversation, is that I come into this paralogical thinking when I explore the idea through Niels Bohr in particular and through quantum physics, because that feels like it can root it. So then when I apply it to spirituality, it's rooted in a scientific analysis of the world. Because Niels Bohr really got it. I mean, one of the lines that he said that, I didn't know that before I really started studying Niels Bohr. I was working on all of this and then came across things that Niels Bohr said that was just so prescient. And he'd said at one point, if the opposite of a trivial truth is a falsehood, but the opposite of a deep truth is also true. And that's a statement, you have to work with that for a bit, but it's a very deep statement of paralogical thinking. Logical thinking, which is, he's talking about as a trivial truth, that's either or. So it's either true or it's false. And the opposite of a truth is a falsehood. And we need that. We couldn't function without it. We need to think logically. If we didn't, we'd be lost. But it's useless for the depths of life, as he found from quantum physics. There, he had to get to a place where he could actually see, for example, that the nature of existence, of light, to begin with, was that it was both particles and a wave. Now, logically, it's one or the other. But paralogically, you can go, no, that's a paradox. That's the way it is when you get to the depths, like yin and yang. The two exist together.
Science is known to be suspicious of things. But on the spiritual side, it seems that one of the overlooked elements of the ancient Gnostics, Neoplatonists, and Buddhists was that they always had a good dose of skepticism in their pocket.
Absolutely.
You propose this is still very good, and I think you succinctly call it the bullshit detector. Tell us about how to use our bullshit detector.
Well,
right.
when I'm talking or when I run my retreats, the first thing I tell everyone is keep your bullshit detector on. Everyone's got one. And it's that thing of, hang on, that can't be right, is it? And my approach with things is very much like, no, keep your bullshit detector on. If it starts going woo, 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 push it. And then if actually it stands up, you've got something substantial there. Too much, one of the things which is wrong with spirituality, the reason that so many scientists or just thinking people generally look at spirituality and go, no, that's just irrelevant. Partly because it's still enmeshed in a lot of crazy religion, but also because so many people switch their bullshit detectors off, so they just go along with what sounds nice. Well, okay, that's nice and pleasant, but if you're looking for truth, that's not going to attract you. What you want to do is actually doubt everything. Partly because that'll take you to the mystery. But then when you're left with the ideas that still feel like they're of value, they're like gold dust. It's like you've panned out the gold from all the dross. And what you're left with, that's really valuable. Really, really valuable.
Another term that I probably should have brought up earlier, but I think it's also very important, is the idea of presencing. Could you tell the listener about that one?
The mystery experience, as you know, Miguel, is a journey. And it's a journey deep into the mystery experience. So you're on your way to a discovery of the deep mystery, the deep self, which is a huge revelation, and then this deep love, and then back into the world. And along the way, I do these wow experiments, which are just spiritual practices, really, but I call them experiments because I prefer to couch them in those terms, to go, look, experiment with this and see what happens for you. And one that I guide people to through the book, eventually, is something I call presencing, which is when you come back to this, when you become conscious of your deep being, which is what is looking but can't be seen, and what's listening but can't be heard, what's touching and can't be touched. It's the spirit, the essence, your being, esse, to be. And it's that which is just this permanent presence, which is always there. And I show ways that you can make this conscious for yourself. And then as you do, then that's something you can do in meditation. It's also something you can do all the time. And what happens for me when I do it right now is that there's this spacious emptiness, a presence, which is my deeper nature, within which all of this is arising like a dream. And that's when this deeper wake really opens up. And that's the nothing within which there's everything.
Yeah, and you were talking about what you're doing, experimenting or whatever, and you often say you're a stand-up philosopher, and of course we think of these days, unfortunately, as a philosopher, some old stodgy guy who's arguing the definition of is for hours. But
no, that was Bill Clinton, I think.
What I like about your work, I don't know, and whatever they are, they're so boring we forget. But the truth is, and what I like about you and Peter's work, is that you show that people like Socrates and Diogenes and Plotinus, these guys were far from that. They were basically the rock stars of their time, the celebrities. They were the ones who packed the arenas and brought passion into the world. Isn't what true philosophers should be doing?
I mean, for me, I mean, this, when we were talking earlier about Enlightenment, and I said we need a new ideal, where the book goes to is this idea that actually what I'm aspiring to is to be a lover of life. That's what I want. And with all the ambiguity that comes with a love affair, where, you know, sometimes you're in love and it's wow, sometimes you're in love and you're arguing, but you still love. And it's like that with life. And what I love about being a philosopher is that to be a philosopher is a philosophia. It's a lover of Sophia. And Sophia is the goddess. And in the ancient imagination, the real deep understanding that I have of what they meant by that, by goddess, is that they saw the yin and the yang as the nirvana and samsara, the pleroma, the kanoma, the things you've been talking about, as the being of things, being the mystery. The being of things, being God. And then there's the appearance of things, or the qualities of things, or the forms, which is her. It's the goddess. She's all of this, all these colors and feelings and thoughts and sensations, and this is the dream. So the God is the dreamer and she is the dream. And they're both the same thing, of course, like a dream and a dream. And what I love about that is that the philosopher, therefore, really is a lover of the goddess, and the goddess is life. It's a lover of the appearances, a lover of the forms, a lover of this dance that we're in. That's what I think philosophy, and true philosophy for me takes you to that. It takes you to Plotinus, that lovely line of Plotinus's. The job of the philosopher is to take you to the vision. Beautiful. So you use words to take you beyond words to something you just, I get it.
And I mean, Socrates, who they say, you know, the foundation of our thought was basically just a natural born mystic. He was there and here all the time. He was
and the irony is, you know, I studied philosophy at university. I had no idea. That no one told me that. Plato, Socrates, all.
Same here. Nobody told me about their lives. They just kind of. They said this and this, so you will believe this.
They were all like,
this.
You know, failed linguistic philosophers that you could tear to shreds in your first year. And actually, they're some of the greatest mystics that have ever lived.
What about you? And I don't think I've asked you this before, but is there any one philosopher or maybe esoteric luminary that you really identify with, Tim, who perhaps acts like your muse? I know you have a lot of alter egos that you use in your book. Maybe he or she had a guitar strapped around their shoulder. You would have a poster in your office right now.
Does Bill Hicks count?
I love Bill Hicks. Yeah, he's one of mine. He is one of mine.
He is definitely one of mine.
Can't go wrong with Bill Hicks. He'll take you to places that you'll never believe you could go before.
Do you know, I think one of the things writing this book is I realized that, you know, the very first book I did was a version of the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Now, I think probably there is no Lao Tzu. I think it's just a name to bring together a number of oracles. But let's ignore that for purposes of this. That book, that particular collection of ideas, that kind of jumble of ideas, really, because it's not very coherent. This was the first thing I ever wrote, was a new version of that. And coming back to write this book, I realized that the thing I quoted the most was Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching. And it'd been with me since I was 15, or younger probably. And so I'd say that, and at the center of that is this idea of paradoxity, paralogical thinking, yin and yang. The Tao is both yin and yang. And this beautiful symbol of it too. And I think probably, without realizing it, that has been percolating away inside me for all those years. It was part of that, I think, probably, that enabled me to see some of the depths of the Gnostic tradition when I came to it and write Jesus and the Lost Goddess and those books, was that there was this other influence which enabled me to go, oh, look, these guys are saying the same thing but in a different way, in a more mythological way, but it's really the same thing. So probably the Tao Te Ching, I think. But I love, but a lot of my heroes aren't philosophers really, like people in the book, Walt Whitman and people. I just look at them and it feels like, my soul resonates with you. I hear you. I know you. You're part of my family. We're of the same tradition, even though I don't know what that tradition is. Troubleman.
And basically, you remind me of the Gospel of Thomas number 18, when Jesus says, well, how will things end? And Jesus goes, well, go to the beginning. And Tim went right to the beginning to Lao Tzu. And
yeah.
That's where you found a lot of the old gnosis you'd left behind or hadn't left behind. It was with you all the time.
I think that's right. And what I love about those things, and it's still going on, I hope it goes on to my last breath, is that as the adventure continues, my understanding of it changes. And what I thought I've understood turns into something more than I could have imagined. And as that happens, then the actual experience of life changes, and that's the really exciting bit. And then you get to die. And then it's like, wow, okay, phew, here we go.
It's coming.
Yeah,
the foreplay's over. It's time to release.
No parachute, nothing. Whoa. Someone said to me just before we came on the air, he said, yeah. Said, life, there's no rehearsal, and you can get written out of the script at any moment.
That is true. And to end, if somebody is interested in your retreats or joining the Alliance of Lucid Living, what should they do? I really hope that people will consider coming out and have a look at my website, partly because I think it's really beautiful. I put a lot of effort into the images and the way we communicate on it. And it's themysteryexperience.com. Themysteryexperience.com. And on that, you'll find out about the new book. The book's been having a fantastic reaction. People who've read it have really got this, I've been bold. I've said it's a revolutionary new approach, and overwhelmingly the response has been, so I'm passionate to get it out there. It's very difficult to do that because everyone's shouting at the top of their voice, listen to me, and I don't want to do that. So quietly whispering, hey, check this out, see what you think. Now, I hope people will have a look at it. On the website, just to make that easy for people, you can download completely for free an ebook or Kindle version of the first third of the book. Because I want people, it's like, have this, and if you like it, maybe you'll consider putting a few dollars towards keeping me alive and buy a copy. So there's that, and that's the one side of what I do. Then the other side is like, if you want to experience this directly, nearly everyone who comes on a mystery experience retreat does, and are just so pleased they made the effort to come because it's such a powerful experience. And I will do everything in my power, if you come, to give you that experience. I can't promise you for sure, of course, but I really will do everything I can to make sure you have that experience. And I'm doing them. I'm coming to America at July to Kansas City, and we're doing one in Kansas City. So it's right in the middle. It's easy for people to come from all over. I'm also going to Calgary in Canada just before the end of June, beginning of July. And these are places I'm doing them elsewhere around the world, including the UK, of course. If people want to really experience the gnosis, they can. That's what I want people to know. They can. And having studied this all my life, I can help them. And I want to. And if they want to make the effort to come, I will do everything in my power to make sure they experience it. And that's what I've come to offer. That's what I have to give back for everything that I've been given. And in this short period I've got before the exit door does open up, I'd like to share it with as many people as I can, because life is precious and it's rushes, doesn't it? When you get older, you start realizing it's pretty short. Oh, yeah. Yes, it is. I think that's all the time we have today. Unfortunately, life is short. We both got to get to washing our dishes today. But I should mention, too, for the listener that the Mystery Experience has some wonderful exercises that you can practice anytime, anywhere. You don't have to go out and buy crystals or, go to some temple, and they actually do work. Like I was telling Tim at the beginning of the interview, I found myself in a sort of trance hypnagogic state where I was in between, and they're very easy. They've been so far, I think, very effective. So I can only imagine the mystic, going on one of the retreats is probably that, but upgraded and reloaded, and probably very intense. Having said that, thank you very much, Tim, for coming once again on Aeon Byte. It's always a delight having you here, and we always have some great conversation, and I hope that your new book does very well, as it should.
Well, thank you. It's always great to talk to you. I love our conversations, and you're doing great work, and I hope you will continue to bring this conversation to people and let people engage with it, because that's what we need.
And there you have it, my beloved truth seekers. Once again, the kind and kindling gnosis of Tim Freke. In this eternal now discussing his new book, The Mystery Experience, a revolutionary approach to spiritual awakening. Along with the show, you shouldn't waste another ogre queef and download all of his interviews at our archive of past shows. All the topics are as sinfully varied as they are sublimely penetrating. And definitely forget not his other best-selling books like How Long Is Now, Lucid Living, and the seminal The Jesus Mysteries Trilogy, co-written with Peter Gandhi. For more information on Tim and his new orthodoxy desecration, please visit themysteryexperience.com. And after I finally stop speaking, please don't take your audio device to be exorcised by the nearest priest or Richard Dawkins or Deepak Chopra. Put away that lighter fluid and match. We will have some of the sublime music from the exciting and first ever multimedia dance theater performance based on the Gnostic creation narrative. It is called the Gnostic Eden, playing in Hong Kong. It is written by my boy, Zeki Lee. Music composed by Piotr Nowotnik. And I'm sure I said both of those names wrong, but so it is. Yes, this is the virtual Alexandria, that state of mind where East meets West, but not where language meets sometimes. The piece I will be playing is called The Prayer of Nuria. You can find more information on this August venture at pleroma.hk. Again, pleroma.hk. Don't miss it. Check out the site and send these brave artists our song of encouragement. That's about it, oh you wild beasts married to the intellect of a philosopher. I guess in my Scooby-Doo backdrop originality, I'll end it with a quote of another exemplar of what is good, what defines us, what is important. Those words that make us look at an endless sky with new eyes and see everything as it is. Infinite in its shit and diamonds. Infinite in its shit and diamonds, my beloved truth seekers. This is from another one of Tim's favorite inspirations, Walt Whitman. Love the earth and sun and the animals. Despise riches. Give alms to everyone that asks. Stand up for the stupid and crazy. Devote your income and labor to others. Hate tyrants. Argue not concerning God. Have patience and indulge towards the people. Take off your hat to nothing, known or unknown, or to any man or number of men. Go freely with powerful, uneducated persons, and with the young, and with the mothers or families. Re-examine all you have been told in school or church, or in any book, and dismiss whatever insults your own soul. And your very flesh shall be a great poem, and have the richest fluency, not only in its words, but in the silent lines of its lips and face, and between the lashes of your eyes, and in every motion and joint of your body. Until the next mystery experience here at Aeon Byte, you Johnny Cash Bodhisattvas and existentialist Galahads. Until the next time we rage against heaven for those paradises lost and misplaced childhoods. Until the next time we sail on the ship of light of the Manichaeans and travel those dark matter skies of mere being. Until the next time we ride together, searching for the truth and avoiding those who have found it. Losing our mind and coming to our senses, one broken heart at a time. Divided we stand, together we rise. Until the next time. I am Abraxas, broadcasting at the virtual Alexandria through the GodAboveGod.com. The road is ended, the song is over. Thought I'd have something more to say. But don't cultivate any troubles, my beloved truth seekers, because like heaven above you, the spy that loved you, I'm keeping all of your secrets safe with me tonight. Hello and goodbye as always. And once again, here is the prayer of Noreen.